When I was a kid, I was obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster. I already had a thing for marine biology, as a lot of young people do, but my first glimpse of the classic surgeon's photograph absolutely clamped onto my imagination. And while I read about cryptozoology in all forms, Nessie was my absolute favorite. I absorbed any books I could find on the subject, and when the internet came into my life via a ton of free AOL hours, I was a frequent lurker on message boards that specialized in photos and supposed first-hand accounts of these hidden creatures. Yeah, I watched a lot of X-Files too. What's your point? I don't know if I ever believed in the Loch Ness Monster, not really, but it was fun to wonder and speculate. Hell, just pulling up all these old snapshots is giving me a creepy thrill similar to what I felt as a kid. But ultimately, that's all it was. A thrill. It was fun. I read about Nessie alongside all of my spooky storybooks, and I certainly never looked at a dark body of water the same way ever again, but I never woke up expecting the newspapers to read, "Nessie found! Holy fucking crap, did we shit the bed on this one? All you bookish types with plesiosaur pictures step forward to be validated in the face of God and science and everything else." The Loch Ness Monster was a story, one that was constantly being updated by talented fictionalists and deluded hopefuls, and that was the appeal. New information, new pictures, they were coming out all the time. It was an extended soap opera written by its enthusiasts for its enthusiasts. My interest in cryptids exists solely as a wistful piece of nostalgia for me. Something I'll Google occasionally when it's late and I've had a few drinks. It's forever a part of me. So I could understand when the era of creepypastas came about, and the latest generation began to create their own extended mythologies. And one of them stands out tall above the rest. A boogeyman conjured up and given unfathomable reality by the hive mind creativity of the internet. A new urban legend to summarize the digital age. Welcome to Geek History, where we tackle geek subjects with slimy tentacles, clutching claws, green clovers, and blue diamonds. Today's topic is the most infamous shade of creepypasta fame, the Slender Man. Perhaps the best-known horror of the internet since those gerbil in a microwave flash animations.
I know what you're thinking. You're gonna nuke me. Well, I got 2 words for you. Bite me. Bite me.
In addition to inspiring a whole new category of deviant art, the evolution of the Slender Man is actually a fascinating example of shared culture and a sort of unique internet-spread folklore that has grown so far out of the digital flower pot it was planted in that it's basically spread roots and vines all over popular culture, including gaming, film, music, and basically anything you can think of. Slenderman hair gel and dog treats are coming, I'm certain of that. So where did it all begin? Well, not to belay the obvious, but the internet. I, for one, was sort of surprised to find out that it started during a contest at Something Awful. In its heyday, Something Awful represented the sort of variety websites that dominated the internet in the early aughts. It was before entertainment websites started to specialize and find their niche. Those were the days of College Humor and Dig. When you'd go to these websites, you weren't exactly sure what you were going to get. Maybe a funny picture, maybe a blog post about games, maybe a short video of a dog chasing a cat or a gif of someone setting their hair on fire. Maybe there'd be a violent Flash cartoon. The whole idea was to receive a dump truck full of random entertainment and parse through it for something you liked. This was before Reddit came along and basically consolidated the whole fucking internet into a Walmart-esque landscape of highly specialized angry forum users. Specifically, the creation of the Slender Man owes thanks to a paranormal Photoshop contest. A user going by the handle of Victor Surge, aka Eric Knudsen, posted 2 eerie black and white photographs, each containing a distant image of a tall, faceless figure, out of focus, almost smudged into the background. The fact that both pictures were dominated by small children only further accentuated the sinister man in a suit watching over them. And that's not to mention the text that Knudsen included. 2 quotes, supposedly attributed to the photographers. "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them. But its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time." One of 2 recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished and for what is referred to as the Slender Man. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence. Not half bad writing, if I do say so myself. Not only are the quotes well composed, they also avoid the obvious trap of oversharing, allowing the vagueness to unsettle you. When you're given the right ingredients, your imagination will always supply you with the next steps on the road to shitting your pants in fear. And why wouldn't it? No one knows you better than your own merciless jackass of a brain sponge. The Slender Man was a symbol of unknowable evil in the world, a creature that lured children away from the protection of their families. Its motivations and origins were unknown. The only thing anyone knew for certain was what to look for. A distended body in a long suit with no face. Snaking tendrils emerge from its back, reaching outwards for something to grab. It's easy to understand how well Slender did, based on its design alone. Simple and effective, it combined the familiar with the eerie on just the right level. Knudsen's shadowy figure with its shadowy origin was an instant hit. It wouldn't be long, however, until enterprising denizens of the internet would attempt to get their own 2 cents in, adding pieces to this puzzle that the creator had originated. It would be easy to focus on everything Knudsen had to say about the creation and evolution of the Slender Man, but the problem with that is almost as soon as Knudsen put this myth out into the world, it ceased to be his. Like any piece of folklore, Slender Man became molded to the people telling the story. At an unreal speed, this dapper demon became ingrained in the cultural zeitgeist of the internet, appearing everywhere. Happy Slender, sad Slender, horny Slender. Oh, the memes. Oh, the memes.
All the noise.
On top of being nightmare fuel to anyone foolish enough to read the internet before bed, Slender Man became a symbol. A symbol for everything. Want the Slender Man to be an icon for bullying or depression? Done. All of this while inspiring countless pieces of art and fiction, including fan fiction. Now, I have a vested interest in staying far away from fan fiction, so instead, I offer you this fan art of Slender Man. He is showing off his abs, and I am feeling uncomfortable. In 2009, the online series Marble Hornets premiered on YouTube. Created by Joseph Delage and Troy Wagner, Marble Hornets is a series of interconnected pieces of footage investigating the disappearance of a young film student. As the mystery unfolds, it becomes clear that this disappearance is the doing of the mysterious operator, a dead ringer for you-know-who. This was one of the earliest pieces of Slender-inspired pop art on this scale, but it certainly wouldn't be the last. In 2012, the game Slender, the 8 Pages, was released for free, and the internet had a field day with it. Not only did it have the jump scare porn that would eventually become synonymous with the most popular video game streamers,
I haven't hit the fence. Ah! What? Where was he? I didn't see him!
it had also taken the mythos of Slender Man a step further. But whatever media that Slender inspired, its most popular designs never got far away from its roots, the creepypasta. The internet was, and still is, on fire with an ever-spreading series of stories, rumors, and outright lies that all contribute to the fleshing out of this sinister suit. And its importance lies in a melding of the old stories with the new. To explain this, let's take a look at a different but similar legend, Der Grossmann. Der Grossmann is the 16th century legend of an emaciated, disfigured creature who lived in the Black Forest and hunted down children who strayed too far from home. Having had a childhood in Germany, I can tell you that this is not at all unusual for those old cautionary tales. When it comes to creeping you out in the name of keeping you safe from wolves or getting lost in the woods, the Germans are masters of their craft. And it doesn't take a linguistic genius to take a look at that name, Grossmann, and realize that it translates to the big man or the tall man. Sound familiar? The similarities to the Slender Man are pretty interesting, and according to several Slender enthusiasts, the Slender Man himself was not actually invented by Eric Knudsen in 2009, but instead a modern twist on a pre-existing legend, lending an older, more menacing weight to the creature's story. Now, to further back this up, some found old wood carvings and artwork, each seeming to portray the Slender Man as we know him. One of the more popular examples of this is Der Ritter, a 16th century wood carving by Hans Holbein the Younger, which portrays a knight being killed by a multi-armed fiend with a disfigured face. Another Renaissance piece, Three Ages of Woman and Death by Hans Baldung, was supposedly X-rayed, showing that Death was originally painted to have extra creeping limbs, much like the Slender Man. These theories and discoveries would tie this internet phenomenon into actual myth and legend. That is, if any of it were true. It only takes a brief amount of digging to find out that both Der Ritter and Three Ages of Woman were photoshopped to accentuate more fictional creepypastas, furthering the story and origins of the Slender Man. Oh, and as for Der Grossmann, well, Google it. There is a ton written about Herr Tall Man, but there is basically nothing out there not connected to the Slender Man creepypasta. Outside of sources who are never able to back up where they got their stories, Der Grossmann doesn't appear to exist outside of the Slender universe. When it comes to these attempted blendings of the real world and fiction, I'm put into the mind of H.P. Lovecraft. Well, not literally into his mind, that would be fucking awful. But I do remember reading Lovecraft in high school with all of my weird friends, and there would always be one of them who would insist that Cthulhu and the Elder Gods weren't fiction, but merely myths that had been whispered into Lovecraft's ear by dark forces. This went all the way to the publication of the Necronomicon. For those of you who didn't spend your formative years reading about ancient gods from beyond the stars, I'll explain. The Necronomicon is a fictional text written by the mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred that tells the secrets of the Old Ones and ways of summoning them, usually at the cost of one's sanity or mortal soul. It's mentioned several times in Lovecraft's work, but it was a fictional device, a prop invented to tie the mythos together. There was never an actual Necronomicon for anyone to read. Until 1977.
Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man, no time to talk.
The late 70s. Disco ruled the airwaves. Margaret Thatcher becomes Prime Minister of Great Britain. The Walkman is invented. A random citizen comes forward with a text that he claims to be a source of ancient evil, heretofore believed to be elaborate fiction created by a long-dead pulp science fiction writer. Yeah, the 70s were weird. Introduced to the world by a mysterious figure known only as Simon, the Necronomicon claimed to be the text of the very book that Lovecraft had written about in so many of his stories. It contains a history of the text and the mad Arab, along with the pages upon pages of spells and incantations meant to summon and commune with the elder gods. A large swath of the pagan, witch, and druidic communities have criticized and downplayed the Necronomicon's importance as an actual, authentic holy text, but that didn't stop many people from taking the notions found there and running with the ideas that it held. In the same way of the constant expansion of Slender Man's mythos, H.P. Lovecraft's fictional world was expanded, as a result, into something that many might consider modern folklore. A small idea about a creep in the woods becomes an honest-to-God mythology. And just like any mythology, there were those who took it too far.
And our big story at 5, two 12-year-old girls charged with trying to stab a friend to death after a sleepover. Police say they were inspired by a fictional character from the internet.
On a Saturday morning in Waukesha, Wisconsin, a cyclist was traveling near the woods when he came upon a 12-year-old girl, bleeding from over a dozen stab wounds. Needless to say, the man called 911.
Yes, she says she's having trouble breathing. She said she was stabbed multiple times.
Stabbed multiple times?
Yeah.
Okay, sir, are you with her right now?
Yes.
Is she awake?
She's awake.
When the victim was asked who did this to her, she answered, her best friend did it. Two other 12-year-old girls were rounded up when the victim identified them by name, and as the police interrogated the girls, you can imagine their shock at the report that the girls attacked their friend not only to impress someone, but something. The Slender Man. Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier believed themselves to be proxies of the Slender Man, servants meant to carry out his will. They believed that if they didn't carry out his orders and attack their friend, then they and their own families would be in danger. Through interrogation and psychiatric evaluation, it's become clear, if it wasn't already, that both the girls were mentally unwell, and their fear and belief in this entity exacerbated their condition. I'm not suggesting that the creators and curators of the Slender Man legend online are responsible, far from it, but I am trying to point this out as a clear case of local folklore taking a hold on the psyche. And that's sort of amazing. When you get down to it, how is this any different from Iceland, where a huge portion of the population believes in elves and will go through painstaking processes to avoid building roads or houses in land that they believe belongs to those fairies? Or hotels that won't build a 13th floor? Or any example of one religion killing others in the name of a perceived mythical god? Or people worshipping Hanzo in Brazil? Well, maybe that's taking it a little too far. Believing in Slender Man isn't exactly a widespread religion, but I do believe that it represents a new era of folklore and mythology, one that spreads like wildfire through the nightmare asylum of the internet. Of course, some folklore enthusiasts might be horrified by that idea. The idea that a creepypasta could somehow be on the same footing as oral histories and superstitions passed down from one generation to another. And I get that. But personally, I have no problem with evolution of folklore like this. It might be a headache for art history and folklore professors the world over, but based on their focus of study, I'd have to guess they're used to headaches by now. The world evolves, the world shifts, and legends and hearsay evolve with it. Foot travel evolves to horse and carriage, to cars, to ships, to trains, to planes, to the World Wide Web. When Geyser and Weir attacked their friend in the name of Slender Man, they took part in a form of what folklorists call ostension, the idea of taking a legend or a myth and making it real by enacting it in life. Furthermore, folklorist Jeffrey Tolbert refers to the creation of the Slender Man as reverse ostension, where people create a narrative to support and perpetuate a legend. And that's where the main difference between Slender Man and traditional folklore seems to lie. As the story of Slender Man evolved, there was a melding of old folklore with new. Der Grossmann is meant to be German folklore, but it's not likely that it goes back to the 16th century. Hell, it's not likely it goes back to 2016. Der Ritter, as I mentioned before, has a huge piece of lore built up around it now that has nothing to do with its actual origins. Der Ritter, at least, is an actual piece of art, but as far as we can tell, it is nothing more than an illustration of a knight being defeated by death. So, what does all of this lead to? Is the Slender Man just our latest horror fad, or something altogether more important? Sadly, that's the sort of question that we'll only be able to answer through the test of time. For the time being, however, Slender doesn't appear to be going anywhere. There's word of a Slender Man movie coming in 2018, and he keeps popping up in video games and stories with the same frequency that he ever did. I believe that the Slender Man represents an important milestone in folklore. Rather than the highly localized regional folklore of the past, however, I think that it represents something of a universal folklore. Stories and myths told through the haunting glow of a computer monitor instead of a campfire. Constant reimaginings and additions to the lore seem to suggest that Mr. Tie and Tentacles here isn't going anywhere. But lasting fascination in this internet meme turned villain could push the story ever further into something that will stick around in one form or another. A boogeyman ready to frighten and befuddle for generations to come.
Would you like to know more?
Everything you could possibly want to know about Slender Man is on the internet. That's the whole idea. Hell, I'd imagine many of you have already done a fair amount of reading on the guy, whether you were looking for it or not. But Slender's influence isn't limited to terribly written fan fiction, photoshops, and Deviant Art. Beware the Slender Man is not only a great look at one of the darker moments in internet history, but it shows how unprepared so many members of older generations were for something like this happening. It's about technology and folklore. It serves as a great look into modern internet culture and mythology in general. You can find it on HBO, and it makes for a creepy evening of documentary. Of course, the internet series Marble Hornets and the video game Slender, the 8 Pages, represent some of the earliest and best adaptations of this communal legend to popular media. Both are free, and both are highly entertaining. And if you're looking for something a little deeper into folklore and semiotics, I might recommend Jeffrey Tolbert's The Sort of Story That Has You Covering Your Mirrors, The Case of Slender Man. It appears in the Semiotic Review, and it goes into Slender's folkloric importances in a way that I couldn't cover in 50 videos. It is academic and a little dense, but it's absolutely worth a read. Thanks once again for watching Geek History. This one took a little longer to get out there, but I like to think that it was worth the wait. And if you're new to the series, might I recommend starting from the beginning with Dungeons & Dragons vs. the Satanic Panic. This is my 4th episode of Geek History, and there's still plenty to talk about. What do you want to hear about? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to send me a like and a subscription. Tell your friends about me. Tell your family. Especially your Aunt Becky. Is she single, by the way? Never mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next episode.
If Daddy don't sink a little drinky, Daddy gets sad and blue. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. La-di-da-di-da-da-da.